In today's video, we're going to talk about different blankets and sheets. Turnout blankets, medium weight, lightweight, sheets to have fill or no fill. I had horses when I was younger, but we lived in Florida and that didn't require much blanketing. When I moved to Nevada and got my first horse here as an adult, that was 12 and a half years ago, and the weather is much different here than in Florida. I had no clue on how to blanket. And over the past 12 and a half years, I kind of learned by trial and error when to use what and what they're for. It's just like a person. When you layer, you can layer different things depending on if you're cold or if you're getting warmer. If you're getting warmer, you can take things off. If you're getting cold, you can put things back on. And this jacket compared to this jacket is different. This jacket has a thinner outer shell here, which would be kind of more similar to maybe a 420 Denier horse blanket. This one has a thicker one, which would maybe be similar to a 1200 Denier horse blanket. So they have their different purposes. This is going to keep you a little bit warmer, protect you a little bit more from the wetness than something like this. This has fill in it. They both have fill in them, but when it's thinner, it's easier for the water to soak through something like this compared to a heavier outer shell. This jacket, because it is thicker, isn't going to rip as easily as this jacket. This jacket already has a rip in it, and it's just very thin. The outer shell is very thin, where this shell is thicker. So it's the same with horse blankets. The higher the denier, the harder it is for them to rip it, and the more protection that they get from the weather. Let's talk about the horse blankets. This is a sheet. This is a horse sheet. This has no fill. This is just what I put on my horse, Chance. There's no fill. Like, this has some thickness to it and fill to keep you warmer. This has nothing in it. It's just the outer coating and the lining. So this lining is 70D or 70 Denier. The lower the number, the thinner it is. The higher the number, the thicker it is. So this outer coating, you can tell this isn't like super thick. The outer coating on this is 600 Denier. So this is a 600D sheet with no fill. This is a light protection for your horse. These are good for lining under your heavier blankets if you want just a little bit more warmth. If you want to add some more warmth to your horse, which that's what I just did with Chance. I put his sheet on. It's starting to get a little bit chillier. It's not super cold to put on a big blanket yet. So he has his sheet on to keep him cozy until I put on his bigger blanket. I'll put his bigger blanket on over top. And that is actually this one. This is a medium weight blanket. This is also a 600D. The outer shell is 600 Denier, so it's a pretty good thickness. This black part, the lining, is 210 Denier, and I don't know if you can tell, but this has some thickness to it. This has some polyfill in it. This is 250 grams. What the 250 grams means is the thickness of the blanket, which the higher the grams of fill, the warmer it's going to be. 250 grams is a medium weight. For Nevada weather, most of the time this is going to be enough, but it also depends on your horse. When it does get a little bit colder, like I said, I use the sheets, which is the zebra. I use the sheets to line this, so it goes underneath this. That just adds just a little bit more warmth. Some horses don't need it. This guy over here, he just needs this. And for right now, my girl over there just needs this. She gets too warm. So it's really just all about trial and error and knowing your horses, but having like your guidelines, knowing some guidelines. So this video is just to kind of give you some guidelines. These are my main blankets that I use. 600 Denier outer shell, 250 gram fill. And on all my blankets, I do like the kind with the gussets. That just gives a little bit more room in the shoulder, and most of mine have bigger shoulders, so it just makes it more comfortable than the ones that don't have that. So I look for this, and most of my blankets are Tough One blankets. And there is a chart that comes with the some of the Tough Ones blankets, and it's on the back here, but it has the different blanket weights and the temperatures, whether your horse is like clipped or not clipped. That makes a big difference too. If you have a clipped horse, you're going to need more blanketing. So if your horse is clipped, depending on your climate, you can use 100 gram, a 250 gram, or even higher. They have 400 gram blankets. I don't know if they go past that. I'm sure they do. So all depends on your horse's coat, your horse's body temperature, if they tend to get warmer or colder. I mean, it's just like people. Some people are okay with colder weather, some people aren't. Horses are the same. A lot of it depends on your horse's coat, how long their hair is. Also depends on your climate and where you live. So we're in Nevada, which is a drier climate, so sometimes the temperature being lower isn't as cold as like what it would be in Florida. Florida has a higher humidity, so it's more bone chilling. So it's just different. So it's basically just learning your horse and the area that you live in. And I feel, like I said, if I try anything different, I like to feel underneath, especially the shoulder area, to see if my horse is sweating or feeling comfortable. Which, let's go see if we can check his real quick. Yeah, he feels cozy. He's not hot. He feels good. He's not too hot. He feels warm and cozy and just right. The temperature's really not that cold right now. It's 46 and it's not too bad. He would normally be okay at this temperature with not anything on usually, especially if the sun was out, but because of the sky and us still having a chance of rain today, looking at the skies, I just wanted to have a sheet on him, so if it does rain, he has some protection on him. This blanket right here is a 100 gram blanket. The outer shell on this is 420D, so it's not as thick, which means it rips easier. The lower the denier, the easier it is to rip. This is 420. Also, it's easier for the water to kind of seep through this too. All of those across there are 600 denier, so that's actually a pretty good outer shell. The 420 or lighter than that is going to be more for the barn or dry weather, or you can use it to line a bigger blanket. So I have used this. We had some 8-degree weather not too long ago, so this is 100 gram. I used this underneath the 250 gram to add some extra warmth. Right now it's not as cold, so I'm using the sheet, which has no fill. So this has no fill. You add it with the 250 gram blanket. When it gets colder, I use the 100 gram and the 250 gram, which gives you 350 gram. So it just adds the warmth. But the 250 gram blankets are 600 denier, so you want to put that on top of this because this denier is only 420. Like I said, it rips easier, plus I think it's easier for the water to seep through if there were a lot of water. So it is water resistant. Most of these are water resistant, but if they end up standing out in the water, in the rain or the snow, and it starts to seep through, you want the higher denier on the outside. This is a sheet, but this is a 1200 denier. That just means that 1200 denier for the outer coating is really thick. This is even harder for them to rip, and it gives more protection. The lining on this, which is the inside part, the black part, is 70 denier. The outside is 1200 denier. This is going to just be a thicker outer coating. This is a sheet, it has no fill. Sheets like this one or the zebra, these are really good, like I said, for lining underneath a blanket, a regular blanket. This can even be good for on top of a blanket if you want, just to protect it even more. 1200 denier. Both of these sheets with no fill are also really good for fall time where it's not super cold and it's not cold enough for them to maybe have a blanket on that has fill in it. You use your sheets to kind of give them some warmth and protection. These are also good for coming out of winter, going into spring, where it's, you know, getting to the point to where it's still kind of chilly, but not chilly enough to have a blanket that has filling in it. These are also good for during the day too. Like, we've been having just really strange weather for January. Usually it's colder during the day, where you can just leave their 250 gram blanket on during the day. But lately we've been having to take them off because it's just too warm. So sometimes it can be an in-between, especially if it's overcast. If it's overcast or if we have some wind where the temperature's still not super cold where you would want to have on a regular blanket, sheets are good for that too. They don't have the fill, like I said, but the coating, the outer coating, the shell, just gives them extra protection from the wind. And even if you have a day like this, it's overcast, it's not cold enough to snow, but if you get a little bit of rain, which we're going to possibly get this next week, this is something good to have on, because the temperatures is too high to have like a regular blanket on. And with the overcast, if you get some rain, this just gives them some protection to keep their coats dry without adding too much heat and warmth from the polyfill on the inside of a regular blanket. So anyway, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight on the different types of blankets that you can use. The outer coating, which is the denier, and how that works. The lower the number, the easier it is to rip. It's thinner and it doesn't protect from water as much if they were to like stand out in it. It can kind of seep through easier. A lot of stable blankets, I think, have a lower denier because the horse is being kept in the barn, and basically they just need to have the fill to keep them warm. They don't need it for protection from the outside because they're inside a barn. All of my horses have shelter, but I at least usually go with the 600 denier, just because if they do stand out in it, they're going to be protected a little bit more. My zebra sheets are 600 denier. This sheet down here is 1200 denier. And again, they make good liners. The black blanket is 100 gram fill. It's only 420 denier. I wouldn't leave that on them just by itself if it was going to rain, because if they did happen to stand out in the rain too long, that could easily over time kind of seep through that and they would get wet. So with that, the 100 gram fill with the 420 denier outer coat, I would put something like this over top of it. So this is just a sheet. It's not going to add more fill to it because it's just a sheet, but this is a 600 denier. This would protect from the water a little bit more. So it's just about the different thicknesses and coatings to learn to layer your horse, to keep your horse warmer during the winter time and keep them from getting their coats wet. So basically it's about just learning about the different thicknesses of blankets and sheets and what they do and how they work, and trial and error, and your horse. A lot of it depends on the length of your horse's coats too. So anyway, I hope that helps you guys. This is just what I do and what I've learned over the past 12.5 years, just about just different blankets and sheets and the grams of fill and how they are with your horses. The temperature, your humidity, everything kind of plays a part. So this is just what I do. I hope it helps. If you guys have any questions about this, or maybe something that I didn't cover in this video, please comment below. Let me know, and I'll see if I can answer your questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.